and Senator Obama's plans to deal with the subprime mortgage issue. If we're interested in having voters focus on that, we should stay away from stuff like this. Look, I can barely remember what I did last Monday, number one. Number two, I haven't run into one Pennsylvanian who's come up to me and said, Governor, I'm troubled because Senator Clinton got that stuff in Bosnia wrong. It's just not an issue for people who are struggling with real things that affect their daily lives and their families, George. And I agree with Senator Kerry. We can carry out the rest of this campaign drawing differences with Senator McCain and talking about the policies that we want to enact. You know, interestingly, I've been going around to a lot of county dinners and breakfasts that we have before the primary, and there's not one person, whether they're for Obama or Clinton, who's worried about us coming together. They're interested in seeing the Pennsylvania primary mean something. The people of Pennsylvania want to vote. But the people of Pennsylvania also want their brethren in Florida and Michigan to be able to cast votes. John Kerry knows that Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, those are the four key states as you go into the November election. And we can't afford to disenfranchise voters in two states.
Senator Kerry, the Obama campaign has been pushing this issue. The campaign manager said that Senator Clinton's not seen as trustworthy by the American people. Senator Obama himself has said that Senator Clinton has not been truthful in this campaign. Should they drop this?
Well, George, I think, you know, sometimes in campaigns one thing leads to another. You know, I wish that what Ed Rendell had just said were in fact being put into practice, but I recall seeing last week Senator Clinton went to, of all papers, the Pittsburgh Tribune and you know, Richard Mellon Scaife's paper, and came out and raised the issue of Reverend Wright. I mean, she did that quite spontaneously. So our hope would be, and I think this is what the Obama campaign is pressing for, is look, let's stick to the real differences. To me, the most important thing to Pennsylvanians, and it's very interesting. I mean, Ed Rendell will agree that, you know, Bobby Casey and what is called Casey country, and the long representation of the Casey family of working folks in Pennsylvania, it's not insignificant that Bob Casey, who didn't have to do anything, decided to get involved and came out for Barack Obama the other day because he really believes that he has a better chance of leading the country to the place we need to go. What I think is important to people to focus on here is what really is going to make a difference to the governing of our country. I think Barack Obama brings to the table, and you see it now in the Wall Street Journal poll numbers, where 60% of Americans believe Barack Obama has a better chance of uniting the country. I think Hillary Clinton's number was less than 40. Her negatives are now higher than her positives. It is very difficult to win the presidency when that's true. And I think what Democrats need to focus on now is who can galvanize a grassroots movement that holds Washington accountable. A Washington that only in the last days, when the pain reaches Bear Stearns, suddenly says, oh, we got to do something about mortgages, or we got to do something about the average person. That's the fundamental issue of this campaign, and I think Barack Obama is gaining this support in red states across the country with red state governors because he has the ability to build this grassroots movement and hold Washington accountable.
Let me bring Governor Rendell back in on this. You talk about unifying the party, Governor Rendell. Your former colleague as governor, Governor Mario Cuomo of New York, has an op-ed in the Boston Globe this morning where he says, here's the perfect way to unify the party. He says, first of all, Obama and Clinton should get together now and agree who should be president, who should be vice president. Failing that, he says, failing that, they should agree right now, and let me show you what he says. The two could announce they will complete the primary schedule and convention, with the winner becoming candidate for president and the other agreeing to be a candidate for vice president, thereby mollifying to some extent the constituency of the candidate who was not chosen. Basically saying right now, both candidates can say, let's guarantee the dream ticket.
Well, I can't speak for Senator Clinton, but I would love that. I would love either way to see these two great people. And I disagree with John respectfully. I agree Senator Obama can unify the country, but so can Senator Clinton. And I think the important thing to understand is who's got the best solutions for the problems. Not just unification, that's great, but unification is not going to bring us health care. Senator Clinton's health care plan is far more workable, far more achievable, and it will not only give universal health care, but it'll drive down costs, which are essential. So I think there are a number of issues that voters have to consider. I would love to see that happen. I think that this duo, regardless, is a history-making duo They're both tremendous candidates. They both would make great executives, and I'd love to see that happen again.
Rendell is signed on with Cuomo. Has Kerry?
George, let me just pick up on something Ed just said, if I can. Speaking as somebody who has worked for 24 years, and my colleague Ted Kennedy, who was backing Barack Obama, has worked for 40 years to get health care, let me just tell you that Hillary Clinton's plan in the United States Senate is a non-starter because it starts with a mandate that is unachievable in the Senate and in what we need to do. Barack Obama starts with children and works up to a system where at the back end you may have a mandate, you will get to universal coverage. But he does it in a way that's going to give Republicans the opportunity to be able to play at the table. Secondly, the issue here, there are differences on the issues that are important. The judgment issue with respect to how you make America safer. Barack Obama gave, I thought, an extraordinarily important speech the other day. In all this hurly-burly, it doesn't always get noticed, but he talked about the security gap and how really the Republicans have pursued a policy that, while they talk about being strong, has made America weaker, that we are more exposed, that Al-Qaeda is stronger, Hezbollah is stronger, Hamas is stronger, Iran is stronger. That is a failed foreign policy. It is John McCain's foreign policy. And the fact is that Barack Obama had the right judgment about Iraq from the beginning. He has the right judgment now about how you deal with Iraq. He had the right judgment about Pakistan and Afghanistan over a year ago. And very importantly, Hillary Clinton and others criticized him. Let me just finish. Hillary Clinton and others criticized him for saying that you can't attack somebody in Pakistan if you have actionable intelligence. A couple of weeks ago, we knocked out the #3 Al-Qaeda operative, and everybody cheered, and they did exactly what Barack Obama said they ought to do.
Yes or no? Would he be making the right judgment if he asked Senator Clinton to run with him? Should they run as one ticket?
Well, that's entirely, whatever judgment he makes will be the right judgment. That's the privilege of the nominee, and it's certainly one of the options available to him, and it would be terrific in a lot of people's minds. But you have to leave the nominee that option.
Okay, Senator Kerry,
George,
Governor
can I say
Rendell.
one thing?
30 seconds, go ahead.
One thing real quickly. Talking about Iraq, Senator Kerry mentioned Bob Casey's endorsement, but there was another bolt out of heaven, John Murtha, the #1 Democrat in taking on bringing our troops home, endorsed Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama and said Hillary Clinton's the best bet to get our troops home and get them home quickly.
And that is the last word for now. Gentlemen, thank you both very much. Now for the view from John McCain's camp, we turn to the senator who has spent most of his career backing Democrats for the White House.
I want Democrats to be back in the majority in Washington and elect a Democratic president in 2008.
And Senator Joe Lieberman joins us now. You're now an independent senator from Connecticut, but no one in your position has ever crossed over like this. You ran for vice president as a Democrat in 2000, ran for president as a Democrat in 2000. Now you are backing John McCain. What do you say to Democrats who say that that shows you've abandoned a lifetime of commitments?
Well, I say that the Democratic Party changed. The Democratic Party today is not the party it was in 2000. It's not the Bill Clinton, Al Gore party, which was strong internationalist, strong on defense, pro-trade, pro-reform in our domestic government. It's been effectively taken over by a small group on the left of the party that is protectionist, isolationist, and basically and very, very hyper-partisan. So it pains me. I'm a Democrat who came to the party in the era of President John F. Kennedy. It's a strange turn of the road when I find among the candidates running this year that the one, in my opinion, closest to the Kennedy legacy, the John F. Kennedy legacy, is John S. McCain, a reformer, somebody who understands, asks not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and remembers the other part of the Kennedy inaugural, which said that we will bear any burden, pay any price to assure the survival and sustenance of liberty.
And
that's John McCain.
And that's the issue of the war. But that's a big statement you've made, that the Democratic Party in just the last 7 years has made such a radical shift from 2000 to 2008.
George, look at the 2000 campaign. It's quite fascinating. Al Gore really was the strong on defense, internationalist, stand by America's ideals in the world candidate. George Bush was not talking about increasing the military budget. He was talking about a humble foreign policy. He was saying he didn't believe in essentially nation building in the interest of democracy and more stable allies around the world. And that's all flipped.
Well, wait, but you just heard Senator John Kerry talk about Barack Obama's most recent speech. He's saying, Senator Obama's saying, we have to do more in Afghanistan. He's saying we should be aggressive against al-Qaeda in Pakistan, and that's exactly what the administration's doing right now.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm hopeful that when it comes to Afghanistan particularly, that we can have some bipartisan movement. But honestly, the Democratic candidates have spent most of their time attacking the war in Iraq. Now, I have a difference of opinion. That's their right to do that, but they've honestly not done anything substantial to advance our cause in Afghanistan or against al-Qaeda. And let me say something else. Iran is a threat to the peace of the world. Iranian Revolutionary Guards are training and equipping Shia extremists from Iraq to go back in and kill American soldiers. They have killed hundreds of American soldiers. It's an outrage. When I put
Senator Clinton voted for a resolution, as you did, to call that a terrorist group.
And I give her a lot of credit for that. That's the point I want to make. In our resolution, calling the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, a terrorist group and urging the administration to impose economic sanctions against them, it's a no-brainer. These people are responsible for killing hundreds of American soldiers. Senator Obama voted against that. Now, to me, that was an irresponsible vote, and I give Senator Clinton credit. She voted for it.
So that would suggest that the differences aren't as great as you first said, but how about all of the other issues? Senator, you were against President Bush's tax cuts. Senator McCain is now saying they have to be permanent. You voted against Justice Alito for the Supreme Court. Senator McCain has said he and Justice Scalia are two of his models for the Supreme Court. You're against Social Security private accounts. Senator McCain says he's for them. Are you saying that the war in Iraq, these issues of national security, overwhelm all of these other issues?
No, I'm saying two things. First of all, as a matter of fact, George, John McCain is not for the private accounts to take the place of Social Security. He's for what Bill Clinton used to call Social Security Plus.
He disputed that in the Wall Street Journal this month, though.
Yeah, I think that's right. But let me, there were two reasons why I support John McCain when I did in December, and I announced it, and I feel even more strongly about it today. One is we're a nation facing great challenges in the world, most immediately from Islamist extremism in the expression in the force of al-Qaeda, the other terrorist groups, and Iran. John McCain understands that and is ready to approach that problem with the combination of strength and building alliances that he talked about in his speech this week. He's also ready to be president as we face another chapter in our relations with the rest of the world, and that is the rise of great powers who we want to have peace with, but we will only really have peace with if we're strong. I'm talking about Russia and China particularly. But here's the second big reason I support John McCain. In my opinion, before we solve the problems that the American people need us to solve in Washington, healthcare, the economy, education, global warming, Social Security, fiscal imbalance, we have to solve a problem within a political system, which is hyper-partisanship, a mud fight. I don't care what's really good for the country, I care what's good for my party. That's outrageous. Of these three candidates, the one who has the clearest record of reaching across party lines, controversially sometimes, to solve a problem is John McCain. And I know he will be that kind of president. And I know because of that, he will win the support of a majority of independents and a lot of moderate Democrats who are sick and tired of the status quo in Washington, which is not solving their problems.
But if he comes in this year and wins in November, he's likely to bring in other members of Congress and senators who actually disagree with all these other domestic issues that you've had a record on for 25 years. It's going to make your agenda harder to achieve, isn't it?
Well, I don't agree with John McCain on everything, but I agree with him on the important things. And I agree with him on the number one challenge to our political system today. We've got to put the national interest ahead of partisan interest. We've got to forget the Democrat-Republican business and remember that we're all Americans. And unless we pull together, we're not going to get this country to where all of us want it to be. So I think this is going to be a very important election, maybe the most important in my lifetime. there's definitely a Democratic trend in the country. I understand that. Probably will be reflected in the votes for the House and the Senate. But when you come to president, you vote for the person. And I think toe-to-toe, experience to experience, national interest above all else, the guts to take on people in his own party if he disagrees with them, John McCain can and should win this election.
Can you name one other big issue aside from the war in Iraq, national security, where John McCain is closer to your view than the Democratic candidates?
Oh, I can. Well, he's had the guts to come out and join me on climate change. That's part of why we have a chance to pass climate change. You can't do it with one party. You got to do it with both. He actually stepped out and was much more forward-leaning on immigration reform than Barack Obama was. Senator Clinton wasn't involved in those negotiations. He worked on the Gang of 14, which saved us from having the filibuster removed, and I think at least created some grounds within which Supreme Court justice will be chosen. Hey, John McCain and I sponsored the lobbying and ethics reform bill. He was very active on that. We also sponsored the commission that created the 9/11 the legislation that created the 9/11 investigation commission, and then passed the legislation that they recommended, which has made America more secure. So we've got a lot of agreements. We've got some disagreements, but that's the nature of our politics. And this man is ready to lead this country forward.
Senator Lieberman, thanks very much. Take care of that cold.
Yeah, there's too much time on airplanes. Thanks, George.
The roundtable is next with George Will, Donna Brazil, Paul Krugman, and Robert Reich. And later, the Sunday Funnies.
As you know, Hillary Clinton coming under fire for claiming she was under fire while in Bosnia. Luckily, she was wearing her Kevlar pantsuit at the time, so...
This Week with George Stephanopoulos, brought to you by Intel. Great computing starts with Intel Inside.
Wow, that's it?
It's got purples and greens.
It looks very complicated.
It looks like a little solar panel.
This is what makes my computer tick, this little thing. This really allows me to connect with my family in Beijing.
I couldn't teach my class without this.
This is the thing that lets me make movies.
Well, I think that's pretty fantastic that this little thing makes so much possible.
Millions of workers across America are on the path that helps guide them toward a rock-solid retirement. It starts right at work with a retirement plan from Prudential. Let Prudential be your rock for retirement.
The Taylor family saved up to send their son Nate to music camp in Canada. The family sent the cello with FedEx Ground. But the cello got held up in customs. FedEx Gateway Operations Manager Fran Pisagno knew he could make a difference. Mrs. Taylor filled out the paperwork, and knowing how important it was to her, Fran personally walked the cello through customs, and Nate was able to get back to practice. Hear more stories from around the world at FedExStories.com.
Naturals from Purina Cat Chow, with whole grains, real chicken and salmon, and the goodness of leafy greens. You live well, you eat right. Help your cat do the same. Naturals from Purina Cat Chow.
At ConocoPhillips, we believe we're defined by what we pass on. That's why ConocoPhillips and Rebuilding Together are helping homes become energy efficient, passing on what matters to the ones who matter most. ConocoPhillips, energy for tomorrow.
Going over and over? It's not just you. Stopping and starting? Going urgently? You're not alone. Lots of guys experience male urinary symptoms due to BPH, also known as an enlarged prostate. But for many guys, prescription Flomax may relieve urinary symptoms due to BPH in 1 week. And who doesn't want to spend less time in the bathroom? Only your doctor can tell if you have BPH, not prostate cancer. Common side effects of Flomax are runny nose, dizziness, and decrease in semen. Upon standing, a sudden drop in blood pressure may occur, rarely resulting in fainting. So when starting Flomax, avoid situations where injury could result. If considering cataract surgery, tell your eye surgeon you've taken Flomax. Do what millions of guys have already done. Ask your doctor about Flomax and call 877-4FLOMAX for a free 1-week trial. Why wait? Join the crowd. Flomax could make a difference in 1 week.
These all...
Saturn, you got it. Happens a lot lately.
People do that.
It's the Meet the New Saturn event, where you'll find the newest lineup of cars in the industry. Get 2.9 for 60 months, plus $1,000 purchase cash on the Aura, View, and Sky, only through March 31st.
Millions of workers across America are on the path that helps guide them toward a rock-solid retirement. It starts right at work with a retirement plan from Prudential. Let Prudential be your rock for retirement.
How can one television special add decades and decades and decades to your life? Tuesday, we'll show you.
Cutting-edge scientists say we're on the edge of living to 150.
A lot of people will say this can't possibly happen.
But it's true. What else can I say? From 76-year-old models to 83-year-old heartthrobs to the new over 100 crowd. So what are the secrets to living way past 100? To find out, watch The View Monday. Then don't miss Live to be 150, a Barbara Walters special, Tuesday night at 10/9 Central.
The Roundtable and the Sunday Funnies, right after this from our ABC stations.
Congress is broken. Spending is out of control. Our taxes are scheduled to go up. Mike Erickson will do something about it. He's a businessman, not another tax-raising politician. Mike Erickson helps companies cut waste, operate more efficiently, and grow jobs. That's a lesson both parties need in Washington. Mike Erickson, successful businessman, real fiscal conservative. Oregon common sense. Republican Mike Erickson for Congress.
I'm Mike Erickson, and I approve this message.
Reach out and press here, and here, and here. Feel how better placement of controls leads to better focus on the road. If not, that's because there's only one place to experience the intuitive design of the RX. Your Lexus dealer, where you'll discover why nothing else feels quite like a Lexus. Attractive lease offers available now through March 31st. Only at Lexus of Portland.
This is K2 on your side. Hoper's Big Give has come to Portland, and you can help give big to Friends of the Children. Go to the Family Matters section at KATU.com. Take part in our online auction or donate directly to Friends of the Children. You'll be making a difference in the lives of kids who need your help. Holding the powerful accountable, K2 News is on your side.
His question is, do I think my mother will be a better president than my father? Well, again, I don't take anything for granted, but hopefully with Pennsylvania's help, she will be our next president. And yes, I do think she'll be a better president.
Is that the official position of her mother? Position of you, her mother? And if so, what do you think she means by that? I have to talk to her before I answer that question.
I would love to be in on that Clinton family debate. We will not go there this morning on the Roundtable, but I am joined, as always, by George Will, Robert Reich of the American Prospect and Berkeley, Donna Brazil, and Paul Krugman of the New York Times, and Princeton, our dueling economists here. And let's start with this debate on the economy. The candidates engaged this mortgage meltdown this week. Take a look.
Federal Housing Administration should also stand ready to be a temporary buyer to purchase, restructure, and resell underwater mortgages.
It's not the duty of government to bail out and reward those who act irresponsibly.
The Dodd-Frank package is not a bailout for lenders or investors who gambled recklessly. They will take their losses.
George, I would guess you think John McCain has the better of the argument there.
Yes, he does. There are 55 million mortgages in this country, 94% of which are being handled just fine. Not effortlessly. Families are scraping and sacrificing to get by.
He made that point.
Quite. And they will not be amused, that 94%, if the other 6% get what will be by some other means a bailout. Now, Mrs. Clinton's answer in the command control model of Democrats is price controls. That is, to control the price of money by freezing for 5 years the mortgage interest rates. The Republicans have put themselves in a bind because people now say, look, if you have Wall Street socialism, whereby you save Bear Stearns, or at least save J.P. Morgan to buy Bear Stearns, and you are thereby socializing the losses and keeping the profits private, why not help everybody? Soon we'll hear from everyone in the country who has a student loan. He says, it's a burden, help me.
Well, you know, McCain's response, the kind of let them eat cake response, and George, your response a little bit too, won't wash. And I don't think it will wash because there are public effects. With regard to Bear Stearns, there was the problem of contagion, a run on the bank. With regard to mortgages that are underwater, people who are abandoning their homes, or people who are going to lose their homes, there are social consequences for neighborhoods. This is not something that is just your run-of-the-mill economic or financial crisis. And I think that, therefore, it is very important and appropriate for the government to do something. I mean, John McCain makes Herbert Hoover look like an activist.
He was.
When I listened to McCain give that speech, I immediately thought of Herbert Hoover's Treasury Secretary. Liquidate farmers, liquidate workers, liquidate real estates, purge the rottenness from the system. You can't do this. This is a major financial crisis. You've got to do something, and that does include helping homeowners who were sucked in. It would be a little different if Alan Greenspan hadn't said, you should all take out adjustable rate mortgages. It would be a little different if the administration hadn't said housing prices are going up, if they hadn't said there is no bubble. So this is a situation where a lot of people have been caught. It's a natural disaster, in effect. It's like Katrina. And to say, oh, let people suffer is like saying, well, let those people who made the mistake of staying in New Orleans suffer.
I mean, even the administration, George Bush is saying the Federal Reserve Board was right, and the administration is coming up with its own version of a bailout for homeowners. Modest version.
Well, Paul is right. People are feeling underwater. It's not just a crisis on Wall Street. It's a crisis on Main Street. They're concerned that the credit market will no longer lend to average Americans. How do you rebuild consumer confidence when they can't go to the bank and get a loan to, buy a car, get a new wash and dry?
George is chomping at the bit here.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know where to begin here. A natural disaster. The government of the United States, bipartisan move, pressured lenders into lending to marginal borrowers as a public policy. You say this is a run on banks, a run on a bank in effect with Bear Stearns. Between 1988 and 1992, 905 banks in this country failed. No one remembers because it didn't matter. I remember in the 1970s, late 70s, I called a friend in New York in the financial circle and said, what should I think about the Chrysler bailout? He said, the danger is it'll work, and that we will then thereby whet our appetite for this. That friend in financial circles was Alan Greenspan.
I just want to say, this is, I don't blame you, but there's a truly reprehensible thing where Angelo Mozillo and Countrywide went out and did this essentially predatory lending to people, giving them complex mortgages they didn't understand, the most complex mortgages to the least sophisticated buyers, and now they're saying, oh, we were forced into doing it because it was affirmative action. This is a really terrible thing.
What is mysterious about the phrase variable rate?
People look at, there was predatory lending. I think the fact of the matter is, there is a huge and a real estate bubble to the extent of several $1 trillion. It is bursting before our very eyes. And the question from a practical standpoint is how much of the loss, and this is going to be a loss of several $1 trillion, how much of the loss is going to be borne by homeowners, how much by investors, and what is the public's responsibility and taxpayers' responsibility
to everyone should take a hit, right?
Everybody is going to take a hit, George, and everybody should take a hit.
But Paul, you also got into the debate between the Democrats on this issue in your column this week. You say that Senator Clinton has been surprisingly bold and progressive, yet Obama, though liberal, tends to be cautious and relatively orthodox. Explain.
Yeah, so if you look, even that little clip that we just saw with the, now Frank Dodd, which is what Obama was referring to, is a program of incentives to get lenders to restructure mortgages, which they hope will work.
And guaranteed with government money, though.
Yeah, but the incentive is guaranteed. But it's sort of relying still on this action. Now, Hillary Clinton is for that, but also for basically a modern version of the Homeowners Loan Corporation that existed during the Depression, which is if this stuff doesn't work, we will actually come in and do it directly as well. So it is a more aggressive strategy. It's kind of similar to the healthcare debate. It's the candidates are moving in the same direction, but Hillary Clinton is moving further. It's a more aggressive policy.
Well, I guess that lays to rest the question of who's the more liberal, Obama or Clinton. I mean, Hillary Clinton is reaching back to a New Deal policy, and I think it was appropriate for the New Deal, but it could be argued, Paul, just like with health care, that as a practical matter, it's not going to get off the ground. The Dodd-Frank in which incentives are provided for any investor who comes up and says, look, I'm going to buy these pieces of paper. We don't know what they're worth. I'm going to buy them at a discount. I'm going to restructure them, give them back to homeowners in a way that they can repay those loans. That makes much more practical.
Remember, they're both for that, but she's willing to step. You know, there's been a consistent pattern through this that they're both, I guess, we'll say they're progressive, not liberal, but they're both liberal. But Hillary has been more in that direction.
And Donna, the voters so far are still giving Clinton the edge on these on economics.
And there's no question. Look, I don't think it's about liberalism or progressivism. They're being leaders. They're showing that they want to get the country out of this financial turmoil, something that John McCain clearly did not do when he gave his speech this week. He appears to tell people without health care, don't get sick, and now if you have a bad mortgage, just, you know, get over it.
George, you said last week that, McCain had to start to step more on the economy, had to learn how to talk about the economy. Do you think he made advances this week on that?
I do. I think this is a center-right country, and his proposal was a center-right proposal. Mr. Obama correctly said, McCain is offering us an you're-on-your-own society, to which McCain should say, yeah, pretty much. We believe we are the party of individual responsibility and individualism. And that would distance him, by the way, from the Bush administration, under which now the Fed is becoming not just the lender of last resort, but the deal maker of first resort, and all kinds of sort of corporate welfare. Can I propose Will's Law? We can all agree on this. 3 liberals and Will. Will's Law is that no company, such as J.P. Morgan now, or Bear Stearns, getting substantial subvention from the federal government, shall be allowed to pay any of its executives more than a GS-15. That's $124,000. That would stop the run to Washington.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Let
me just say one other thing. I think the Will's Law ought to be expanded to include oil companies should not get extra money from the government. Pharmaceutical companies should not have their research and development subsidized by the government. We should have no corporate welfare at all in this country. Well, good. Well, let's go forward. I think we have
agreement.
A great deal of agreement.
We had to all be on the Credentials Committee at the Democratic National Convention. Come on, let me turn to that. And Donna, we did see a slightly new phase in the campaign this week. Both Senator Dodd and Senator Leahy calling on superdelegates to end this race. I'm not sure the Obama campaign really welcomed those calls, but beyond that, we saw Senator Clinton's response today. Forget about it. We are going to the convention on the Credentials Committee. That's how this is going to end.
Well, I think we have an exit strategy in the Democratic Party to end the primary season on June 10th, and sometime before, I think...
Why June 10th?
Well, that's the end of the primary season based on the rules, and after all, this is about the rules.
There's a little give there. The last contest is June 3rd, but you're saying...
After Puerto Rico, but the official date to hold a primary caucus is June 10th. So sometime before July 4th, I am clear that the superdelegates will break one way, the uncommitted will break one way or another. If you're committed, you can also change your mind, and this thing will end. This notion of bringing this fight on to the convention is not a wise idea, and I think whoever is coming up with this new strategy is not looking at the math again. Howard Dean has already appointed 25 members. The states will send 3 people to the convention on the Credentials Committee. Obama has 1 more state, so
far more.
So do the math. This is not healthy. It's not what the Democrats would like.
This is an important point. Let me just press this. You're saying that the Credentials Committee, unless there's some dramatic change, some dramatic Obama collapse, that Senator Clinton can't win at the Credentials Committee.
48 states comply with the rules. Why would they all of a sudden change the rules? Clearly, Florida and Michigan will be dealt with. We can do that as a rules amendment, a charter amendment. The Credentials Committee could take it up to give them, some floor credentials, but we should not tear the party up.
George, you have some sympathy for Senator Clinton on this.
Well, I do. There's a 4-letter F word that's driving your party crazy. It's fair. I used to forbid my children to use it for fear they'd become liberals. They are trying to make this so exquisitely fair you can't come to a conclusion. If you had a few winner-take-all primaries, if you had diversity, big word in the Democratic Party, and allowed diverse rules, then in the states, then you'd have a nominee, but that'd probably be Mrs. Clinton. But for now, what is the rush? Mrs. Clinton, 3 weeks ago we didn't know Reverend Wright from a hill of beans.
No,
there may be other surprises.
George, I will sort of agree with you. I don't think there is a rush right now at this particular moment. I think, though, that the party elders or the party leaders, now there may be a little bit of a contradiction in terms, Democratic Party leaders, but to the extent that there
is
still
no real
leaders,
center of gravity.
no, there
in
isn't.
the party.
But I think that people like Al Gore and John Edwards and Howard Dean need to step in, not to stop the election, not to stop the primaries, but to make sure that we tone down the rhetoric, because that is what is really helping McCain and hurting Democrats right now.
I talk to a fair number of people on both sides, not political, but actually no, real people out there, and I think it's terribly important. You know, clearly Obama has the ability to just shut this thing down, to shut out Florida and Michigan, get enough of the superdelegates. But the trouble with that is it would very much hurt him in the general election, because there are a lot of grassroots Hillary supporters. A lot of them feel that she was treated very unfairly, grotesquely unfairly by the media. And if this is done by running out the clock, by not giving a chance for people who support her to be heard, then some of them will walk.
You know, the problem is simple. Senator Clinton was supposed to win this. She was supposed to have finished up the contest on February 5th. They had no post-Super Tuesday strategy. They ran out of money. She came back from behind. She won Florida. I mean, she won Texas. She won Ohio. But there's no reason to demonize and to disgrace the Democratic Party to prolong this race longer than
You're doing insider speak. I'm talking about what the large number of people, many of them women, but not all, who just feel that this has been done fairly. If Obama gets the nomination fair and square, there's your word, then they will come around. But if it's done, if it has even the slightest echo of Florida 2000.
But on either side with it.
Yes, Paul is right in the sense that everybody must see this as fair. And I think that Hillary Clinton's strategy with regard to talking about a credentials fight is basically to keep things open long enough so that she has a vague possibility, and this is a very tiny possibility, of prevailing on a couple of states.
Wait and see if something happens to Obama, because you brought up the issue of Florida 2000. I think that weighs heavy on all Democrats, especially superdelegates. Here's the fundamental problem for the Clinton campaign. There's no reasonable possibility that by June 10th, she is going to be ahead in the pledged delegates. And I believe, and I want to put this question to Donna, I just think that the majority of superdelegates who are remaining out there simply can't, in their gut, vote to overturn the superdelegates, given the Florida history.
That's true. That's the gospel truth. But then, on the other hand, I just want to answer Paul so that, we go out of this okay. Nobody is telling her to get out. I would like to see her.
We just heard a couple of people,
they're speaking, but the party itself is not saying, get out. No one has said get out. I have been behind Senator Clinton's efforts to restart her campaign, change her voice, get herself back in groove, but it ends in June. I think this notion that we go on to August is a bad idea.
It needs to be understood that Florida and Michigan, those states themselves, had made the decisions with regard to what their fates are going to be with regard to these nomination elections. It's not the Obama people who are pushing this, and it is over. I mean, Florida and Michigan are not going to hold nominating conventions, and as a result, if this is going to be contested all the way to the convention in August, it's going to bode very, very badly for the party.
I guess, George, the counter-argument to what I just laid out is that Senator Clinton not only wins Pennsylvania, but wins Pennsylvania big. And then May 6th becomes the key date. Indiana and North Carolina vote. If she wins both, then it will create some kind of a chemical chain reaction. People will have vast second thoughts about Barack Obama. But if he wins one or both on May 6th, the superdelegates break.
If. Let's let it play out. Suppose she wins Pennsylvania, thereby having won every large state except Obama's Illinois, and suppose she wins Indiana and North Carolina, then we have a question. I do not claim to understand the party's mind of the Democrats, but if they have superdelegates, they are either redundant, if they're merely to ratify decisions already taken, or they're supposed to be independent to make just this kind of judgment. He's got numbers, she's got momentum, let him decide.
And that will be a very difficult, but many of us are prepared to make that decision in June. I think the notion that we will allow this to go throughout the summer, to give the Republicans a a leg up is erroneous.
We're going to make the
now,
decision.
right now, it helps. Right now, it helps both candidates, George. It's making them both better candidates. It's keeping enthusiasm and excitement up. But there is a point. There is a tipping point at which this becomes very negative. And John McCain is getting a very large free ride out of this. Another month or two, and this is going to turn
And George,
back.
he's been using it well the last couple of weeks to move, to both unify his party and move over to the center.
And to introduce himself again. He's a man who's been very much in the public eye for a very long time. However, he now is laying out his themes in an orderly manner because he's getting this free ride in this biography tour that he's on, next week? The ad he has out, very powerful ad, focusing on him in the Hanoi Hilton. This is, he's not making a misstep yet.
And we will show that ad in the green room, where all you guys are going to go on and continue this debate. You can join in later on abcnews.com, and you can also get the latest political news and analysis there every day from The Note. Coming up here, the Sunday Funnies.
What has made Grant Thornton one of the largest accounting organizations in the world, with resources in more than 100 countries worldwide? Is it their expertise and partner involvement, global capabilities, and extraordinary audit, tax, and advisory services? Or is it their passion for how they serve their clients? Grant Thornton. Find out what it's like to work with people who love what they do.
We have recycling plans that fit the biggest companies and programs that help others get started. We're there for you every night and on the job with you every day. When you put waste management to work, you get an environmental partner. And big ideas for every size business. From everyday collection to environmental protection. Think green. Think waste management.
What are you guys doing?
We're ideating.
ID what?
Ideating.
What's that?
Coming up with new ideas.
Why don't you just call it that?
This is different. We need to rethink the way we do things. Structure.
Process. We need to innovate.
How?
We haven't ideated that yet.
Good luck.
Thanks.
These all...
Saturn, you got it. Happens a lot lately.
People do that.
It's the Meet the New Saturn event, where you'll find the newest lineup of cars in the industry. Get 2.9 for 60 months, plus $1,000 purchase cash on the Aura, View, and Sky, only through March 31st.
Tonight, Oprah's Big Give revs up. The final 5 competitors hit the road, but an unexpected turn leaves everyone shaken.
Hi, Steven.
Oprah! An all-new hit, Oprah's Big Give, tonight at 9, 8 Central on ABC.
Now, in memoriam.
I'm Davy Crockett.
Well, I've heard a lot about you.
I've heard a lot about you, too.
Please try our new Bartles and James Red Sangria, and thank you for your support.
I'd give the Reagan foreign policy a solid B. For American foreign policy, a B is something to be treasured.
This week, the Pentagon released the names of 14 service members killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. We'll be right back.
At ConocoPhillips, we believe we're defined by what we pass on. That's why ConocoPhillips is working with Rebuilding Together to help homes and communities across our country become energy efficient, teaching our children the importance of giving back, making better use of our energy supplies, so we can pass on what matters to the ones who matter most. ConocoPhillips, energy for tomorrow.
Disciplined investing. It's not about following the crowd. At T. Rowe Price, our independent research means we're not deceived by every market ripple, and we don't chase every fad. For each 3, 5, and 10-year period, over 70% of our mutual funds beat their Lipper average. Low-cost mutual funds from T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence. Request a complete prospectus or profile with investment objectives, risks, fees, expenses, and other information to read and consider carefully before investing.
If you could change the way wireless companies did things, what would you do? I'm Dan Hesse, the new CEO of Sprint. Here's our idea. Use your phone for all the great things it can do without worrying about the meter running. How's that for a wireless revolution? Pretty awesome, huh?
Can a car company grow in harmony with the environment? Why not? At Toyota, we're not only working toward cars with zero emissions, we're also striving for zero waste in everything else we do. Because the best way to have an impact on the environment is to have as little impact as possible.
It's the American way. Work, save, invest, all to help your kids. But when this couple put their savings into real estate to get ahead for their kids' college fund, they lost it all. So what's next for them? Watch The Kitchen Table Economy, Monday on World News with Charles Gibson.
We end, as always, with the Sunday Funnies.
There's a chance that John McCain will pick Condoleezza Rice as his vice president. Well, actually, think that's a perfectly balanced ticket, right? I mean, he's white, she's black. He's a man, she's a woman. He's always steamed, she's rice. You see what I'm saying?
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton was in Indiana trying to get more people there to like her. She claims to have taken some incoming sniper fire at the Indianapolis airport baggage carousel, but other than that, they say the trip went very well.
Now, the fighting apparently is so fierce, and the bullets are flying so fast and furious, they may have to pull the Marines out and send in Hillary, Chelsea, and Sinbad.
I like John McCain. He looks like the guy who gets frisky with the new waitress at IHOP, you know? Hey, any more coffee? How you doing?
That's our show for today. Thanks for sharing part of your Sunday with us. We'll see you next week.
A major storm in the area left a lot of people in need. FedEx Kinko's team member Doug Robinson's home survived without much damage. So he knew his time was better spent by helping others. So instead of working on his own home, Doug decided to spend the next few days working at his FedEx Kinko's, doing everything he could to help customers get their lives back on track. Hear more stories from around the world at FedExStories.com.
Hi, I'm Scott Edward Logan. I practice martial arts, and I love my leave. Pain is an old friend of mine. I inherited arthritis. It started in, I think I started noticing when I was 18. That's when I first started noticing it. Going through boot camp in the military. Pain is in my joints, both knees, my right hip, and my right elbow. I carry it around with me because it's the best thing I've taken so far, and it works. For me, it works. If I'm going to rename a leave, I would rename it, it relieves the pain.
These all...
Saturn, you got it. Happens a lot lately.
People do that.
It's the Meet the New Saturn event, where you'll find the newest lineup of cars in the industry. Get 2.9 for 60 months, plus $1,000 purchase cash on the Aura, View, and Sky, only through March 31st.
You see a troubled steel business.
At Franklin Templeton, we saw a chance to invest in a re-engineered steel company poised for a turnaround, building strong returns for our fund's shareholders. Perspective like this has made Mutual Series a leader in value investing. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective. Ask your advisor for a prospectus with investment goals, risks, fees, expenses, and other information to read and consider carefully before investing.
2 weeks from tonight, and look who's back. Start here for all new Desperate Housewives. And start catching up with a full season of episodes, now playing at abc.com.
You might want to jump on it right now. Oh, my baby.
Start fresh. ABC. Start here.
This week is always on, even when your television isn't. Just go to abcnews.com to get all of George's exclusive interviews and behind the scenes with the day's biggest newsmakers. ABC News is always on for you at abcnews.com.
Tonight, she went from high school dropout to college graduate with 4 amazing kids.
They're the reason why I am who I am.
Now, she'll get the home she worked her whole life for. All new Extreme Makeover Home Edition, tonight at 8/7 Central on ABC.